All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show. I am Joe, and I'm your host every Tuesday evening right here at 1380 on the AM dials, 99.9 on the FM dial, and of course streaming at WNRI.com. We are here Tuesdays from 6:05 to 7 p.m. and we rebroadcast the show every Saturday at 1 in the afternoon. Excuse me. I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors. Vern Rainville. Vern Rainville is a licensed insurance adjuster. Okay, he is a public insurance adjuster. That is the operative word, public. He's licensed by the state of Rhode Island to work for you, the homeowner, the property owner, not the insurance company. So Vern Rainville is a licensed public insurance adjuster. Now, a lot of people I know have had problems with significant water damage, pipe damage, all kinds of damage from the cold and the wind and whatnot. Give Vern a call, see if he can help you receive as much money as you're entitled to based on your insurance policy. But you have to give him a call, 484-300-8495. That's Vern Rainville, Rainville. He's a Rhode Island guy. All calls are returned within 24 hours, 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville, public insurance adjuster. And I also want to do a shout out to Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony Betancourt and his team of attorneys and paralegals do an awesome job taking care of buyers and sellers of residential real estate. Any questions we have, they have, call Anthony up, call his team up, and they'll get you answers. And what they're really good at is identifying potential problems ahead of time. That way you don't have a surprise a week before closing, because surprises are never good when it comes to real estate. They're never good. So that's why we send everybody to Compass Title and Escrow, because it's like The Rock. They do an awesome job. Okay. I want to talk a little bit now. We go to my Trustee Mortgage News Daily. Okay. So rates this week, the 30-year fixed rate, 6.04. That's unchanged from yesterday. So call it a flat 6. 30-year FHA, 5.63, 5.65 for the 30-year VA loans. So folks, those are pretty darn low. Okay. And while these aren't rates quoted by lenders, local lenders around here directly, you'd have to call them, and I can certainly give you guidance. So if you reach out to me, your humble host, 401-409-5030, not during the show, tomorrow, or send me a text, 401-409-5030. We can have a little chat and talk about which lender would have the best program for you, whether it's Washington Trust or Shoreham Bank or Navigant Credit Union or Embrace Home Loans or Semper Home Loans or Loan Depot. These are all great lenders that I refer my clients to, my buyers to, because you want to work with a local lender and you want to work with someone that has the best program for you, okay, for your situation. So if you want to give me a call, again, it's Joe Luca, Luca, 401-409-5030. And, I also have a lot of video content out there. I have a YouTube channel. So if you look for perhaps the Cup of Joe Luca or Joe Luca Realtor, Realtor, you should be able to find my YouTube channel with a whole bunch of videos. I try to put a lot of evergreen content out there just to help educate you, the consumer, about the real estate process, because it's always changing. The one thing that never changes about the real estate business is it's always changing. Now, speaking about changes, one of the things that something else that doesn't change is we're all getting older. Okay. And that every year you get older and closer to pushing daisies, it forces us we should be prompted to think about, okay, what changes do I have to make this year as I proceed more closely to, towards the end. None of us get out of here alive. So if you're younger and you have kids, you have to start thinking about, okay, as the kids mature, eventually move out of the house, do you become empty nesters? Do you want to stay in the house, downsize? What do you upsize? I have empty nesters that I've helped upsize in the past. Or if you're a little bit more, senior than that, and you're, trying to decide, jeepers, do I want to stay in the house and, age in my house, or does it make sense to do something else? So, the topic of the show tonight is aging well at home, a realistic guide for Rhode Island and Massachusetts homeowners. But this is really for homeowners anywhere right now. So as you know, I'm a Rhode Island realtor and Massachusetts realtor, and I help homeowners make smart decisions that fuel their future. Okay. My goal is to provide clarity to my clients. So one of the things that I've been able to help folks do, because where we are in the market right now, most of the listings, most of the homes that are for sale are from either people that are getting a divorce, people that are moving to a different stage in their life, nursing home, assisted living facility, moving in with families, or folks that have passed away. So these are the things that prompt people, as you're getting closer, family members, to say, all right, Jeepers, what are we going to do at this point? And, I've certainly counseled a lot of people over the years that, when they get to this fork in the road, so to speak. And sometimes their best bet is to just not do anything, stay in the house. It doesn't help me, it doesn't make me any money, but my goal is always to provide clarity to my clients so they can make smart real estate decisions that will fuel their future. Okay. So whether it's helping a single person, you have a couple, one of them passes on. I've had situations where, the owner of the house is in a nursing facility and a sibling was living in the house, a sibling passed on, there was no one in the home. So this particular individual chose to sell the house. So there were a lot of things we had to do. We had to clean everything out, not just declutter, but remove everything. We had to make repairs to the house, because, the utilities had been turned off before we were able to, before the attorney had access to any funds to do things like pay the gas company, pay the water bill, things like that. So, when those things start to kick in, other problems start to mount. Okay. So, these are the types of things I've helped individuals with, couples with, attorneys with, financial advisors, because it's not easy. And I have a team of people that I've worked with who can help facilitate this whole process. Now, this topic is important because there's an emotional and financial weight that you are shouldering, trying to decide whether to stay in your home or to sell your home. Okay, and there are ups and downs with each of them, and everyone's decision is going to be different. Even if they had the exact same home, everyone is going to make a different decision based on your ability to manage stress, to manage projects, to move around, physical abilities, things like that. These all come into play. So if you have someone who's very sharp mentally, but they're pretty infirm, they're going to have a different set of decisions to make than someone who is mentally sharp and has mobility. Okay, are you still going out every day? Are you doing are you going for walks? Are you exercising? That's different than some people who are restricted with their movements, especially if you have stairs, that can create another set of problems. Of course, you can if the house is laid out so that you could move a bedroom to the first floor and the utilities and everything, so you never had to deal with the stairs. That's something else. My house, when we bought it, we added a bedroom to the first floor so that as we age, we can live on one level. Okay. Of course, we'd have to put a ramp coming into the house from outside, but that's pretty minor. So it is an emotional decision because you've lived in the house, watched kids and grandkids grow up, lots of memories are in the house. But it's also a financial decision too, because what am I going to do? Am I going to rent? Am I going to buy? Am I going to move into assisted living? These are all major financial commitments. So what I try to do with my clients is we sit down and have a conversation first about what your wants are, what your needs are, and then we look at the data, everything, what the options are that's out there. I have relationships with assisted living and nursing home facilities, so we can bring them in to give you a perspective on that as well. Your home is one of your most significant financial assets, most valuable, if not the most valuable financial asset. For most of us, that's what it is. How you use that asset as you approach the waning years of your life, it matters more than ever. Okay, because one of the things that you want to have is you want to have some predictability. You want to have some stability. You don't want to make a decision and then 6 months or 6 years down the road decide that, oh my gosh, that was the wrong decision, and you have no financial alternatives, no other resources available. Okay, you don't want to. The old saying on country songs was, what was it about? The paycheck runs out before the end of the week. You don't want, your ability to support yourself in life to run out before you pass on. Okay, and we try to make all of the smart decisions, give you the tools so that you can make smart decisions, so that doesn't happen to you. Because if you don't have the facts, if you don't have good information in front of you, it's very easy to make a bad decision. It's very easy to make a mistake. I've seen people do it. I've seen people back in the day when, before the whole thing with reverse mortgages was reformed, and people would get a reverse mortgage, and then the home value would go down, and then, they had to pay money to the bank. It was a horror show. Because they didn't do their homework. They didn't work with a professional who was experienced and knowledgeable, and talking to them about what their options were besides, at that point, getting a reverse mortgage. Now, this was like, right around the time of the big crash. So it's very different right now. Now, reverse mortgages are viable for some people, but they're not cheap. There are lots of fees that are involved. And when you're looking at things, it's like, okay, I'm going to get a reverse mortgage. I can stay in my home until I die without a mortgage payment. It's going to cost me $20,000. Or I can do this other option, and it's only going to cost me $15,000, but it's not my own home, or whatever it is. So there are a number of different things that would need to be addressed, reviewed. Okay. So where we are right now, the current market reality in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, southern New England, is it's still a strong seller's market at the beginning of 2026. Things have not changed. Providence and surrounding areas are still among the nation's busiest real estate markets. Pay attention. Little old Rhode Island, the greater Providence area, has one of the nation's busiest real estate markets. Days on market inventory levels are lower than in many other areas. Strong demand, very limited supply, and sustained buyer interest have been contributing to this. Okay. And of course, there's more competition, there's more demand at the lower price points. Okay. I had just a quick story. I not related to this demographic at the other end. At first-time home buyers, I had an individual, and she was referred to me by her pastor last year, and we couldn't get her approved for mortgage at that time because of work history, length of time, etc. But we went to get her in an apartment. She's been there almost a year, and now she's ready. So we got her pre-approved with one of our great lenders, Lena DePina at Washington Trust, and now she's going to be able to buy a home. Okay. We have someone else that we could not get him approved with on his own. He had to bring his sister in so that she could apply too, and his pre-approval amount increased $120,000. Excuse me. So, there are ways to put these transactions together, and that's why I ask lots of questions when I meet with my buyers, my sellers, to try and find out what exactly your end game is. What do you ultimately hope to achieve? Okay, and then we'll bring in a lender, figure out what that determines, what reality that determines, and then we make a decision of how to proceed from there. The same thing works when you're at the other end and you're trying to decide, jeepers, do I need to sell my house? Do I need to age in place? Do I own my house free and clear? Should I get, or not? Should I get a reverse mortgage? Lots of different things. And sometimes it's a hybrid. It's a combination of the things. Okay. Home prices in Rhode Island have continued to increase steadily. The single family sales price in 2025 at the end of the year was $499,900. That's up over 5%, 5.7% year over year. In Providence proper, the median list sales price activity remains very competitive and prices are still historically elevated. Do we see price reductions? Yes. But that doesn't mean that even that reduced price is still going to be probably at least 5% higher than a year ago. So all of you buyers that are waiting for the market to crash, it's not looking like it's gonna, because there's just so much more demand and we've underbuilt for so long and so many people are not selling their houses, okay, for obvious reasons. Now, that's the reality of where we are right now as far as the market. What does this mean for older homeowners? Okay, and you could be an older homeowner in your 60s or an older homeowner who's in your 80s. Older is a very nebulous word. Okay, some folks they retire, they're 62, they don't want, they're not very mobile or whatever the situation is. That's very different than somebody who's 80 years old and still goes for walks and works full time to keep their mind sharp. And everyone is different. It's also very different that if you're living in a home that's well maintained, single level, doesn't need a lot, or if you're living in an older home that needs, has a lot of deferred maintenance issues, or the boiler's 40 years old, or roof is 20 years old, the windows are 20. These are all things that are going to start to fail over the next few years. I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you when, but generally speaking, those systems are going to need to be improved upon or replaced. So if you're in that kind of a home, and it's all right, 10 or 15 grand for a boiler, 10 or 15 grand for a roof, 10 or 15 grand for the windows, paint the house, whatever. Now you're looking at 50, 60, 70 grand. You can sell it. You can make the repairs. You can live in the house and not make the repairs, but some of them you're going to have to deal with. Okay. And the question is, do you want to deal with replacing the boiler when you're 70 or 75, or deal with it when you're 60 or 65? Okay. And again, I ask questions, I give straight answers, and I offer up everything. Sometimes, again, you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, it's worth you just taking the money, put a new boiler in your home, stay in your home. Doesn't help me out at all as far as my income, but that's what's best for you, because at the end of the day, my goal is to help my clients or my prospective clients make smart decisions to fuel their future. to provide clarity so that they're confident in making that decision, whatever it is. All right. So, low inventory, that can help older homeowners because it supports stronger pricing. So we do a market analysis. We look at what comparable homes in your neighborhood or your zip code are selling for. We establish a price. Very good chance you're going to get that number. Okay. Now, we're in a situation where many homeowners are holding on to low rate mortgages, which contributes to the shortfall, and it's also contributing to the historically long tenure that homeowners have. Some people can have a mortgage that it's 8 years old and they're paying 4%. It makes sense for them to move, to sell the house and move. Other people can have 4.5% and it doesn't make sense for them to move. Everyone's situation is different. It's based on market realities, your wants, your needs, and what you're comfortable with. And that's what I hope to, at the end of a conversation with my prospective clients, that's what I want them to have. The information, the clarity to make a decision that they're comfortable with. All right. So if you're thinking about selling your home in the next few years, remember this: you're selling in a market where demand is robust and it's not going to change. So that's a good place to be. Selling into a market with strong demand. All right. As opposed to a market where prices are, dropping and the number of buyers is decreasing, like we were in, 16, 17, 18 years ago. So now, aging in place. What does it really mean? Most homeowners want, or a large majority of older homeowners want to remain in their home as long as they can. There's emotional comfort, community ties, and a certain level of independence. Those are all valid reasons to stay in your home. Again, remember we said at the beginning of the show, the decision is emotional and financial. Okay? Emotional is just that. Financial, we can establish a representation of the financial reality that will help you understand what the best decision, just looking at the finances, what that decision should be, or what it, could be. Some of the practical challenges of aging at home, there are definitely some, or one, maintenance, safety modifications can be costly. Changing the heights of toilets, of cabinets in the kitchen and the bathroom, making sure everything's easy access. You don't have thresholds if you have to go onto a wheelchair, if you're on crutches or a walker. Okay, having grab bars. Mobility access. Do you need a ramp to get in the house? Are the stairs too tough? Then sometimes, I remember when my, my grandparents and my great-grandparents, all of their friends died. They all lived to be old. My great-grandfather and great-uncle were 104 and 106. My grandmother was 101. My aunt was 100, almost 101. My other aunt was 99. So all they had was family. And of course, family, people work, they, doing stuff with the kids or the grandkids. So what can happen is you can feel isolated in your own home. Maybe you're in your own home. You have health changes in health. As I mentioned a moment ago, unexpected repairs, yard work. These are all things that impact your quality of life and your pocketbook. your finances. So some of them we can go in, we can look at the house and we can say, okay, based on the age of the heating system, the condition of the siding and the stairs and the driveway, um, your landscaping, the trees overhanging the house or whatever it might be. These are expenses that are probably going to need to be addressed in the next few years. Now, of course, none of us know, am I going to live another year or another 15 years? We don't know that. But knowing that you have potentially 10, 20, 30, 40,000 bucks in repairs to your house coming down the pike, and you only have X number of dollars in the bank, that could really shorten the amount of money you have left to live on. Aging in place can be more affordable in the short term, but may require tapping savings, insurances, or making loans to cover these issues, these challenging issues that we just mentioned. But I want to emphasize, aging in place is a perfectly valid choice, but it's a lifestyle decision as much as a financial one. Again, if you're, someone and you have kids or grandkids that you could move in with, that's one thing. If you're all alone, you don't have any kids, no spouse, no siblings, that's something else. Okay, so, we look at all of these variables and then, we assess them, we quantify them to see what is best for you. Selling, this is emotional and financial opportunities. Okay, there are equity gains and timing. Many homeowners in southern New England or in New England in general have seen significant rates of equity appreciation over the last 10 years. So downsizing or relocating to a lower maintenance home could unlock that equity to help you achieve your retirement goals. So sell that colonial, that 2,500, 2,800 square foot colonial, and buy a single level condominium. It's only 1,000 square feet. Slab on grades. You don't have to deal with the stairs in the basement. Some of the common pitfalls that older sellers, when older sellers, they misprice their home. They can undervalue their home, underprice it. Some older sellers receive lower net returns because of because of deferred maintenance issues, poor home upkeep over a number of years. Selling their home to someone down the street or a family member, not fully exposing the house to the marketplace to get something closer to fair market value. Pay attention, this is important. Advice: list properly and maximize exposure, not just to sell quickly. If you have to sell quickly, that's a different conversation. But if you don't, if you have the benefit of time, use it to your advantage. Okay, we can get people in there to clean up the house, to cut the, trim the shrubs, cut the grass, clean up the edging, so that you can receive more money, more net proceeds after closing. After you sell your home, the options that you have are, finding a right-sized home nearby, locally, close to family, if that's what you want. Maybe it's a full retirement community or some kind of independent living. The benefits of retirement communities are you don't have the property taxes don't account for kids going into the school system. So if you're in a 55 plus community, your property taxes are going to be lower than if you were not. Okay. Selling doesn't mean giving up home. It means choosing the lifestyle that serves you next, for the next phase in your life. You know, when my kids were little, everything's a phase. Okay, you've got the terrible twos, you've got the threes, the four, whatever it is. You know, the preteen, teen. Okay, everything was a phase with kids. We all went through it, and even now, as my kids are young adults, as we continue through adulthood, we're going through different phases. Okay, my parents, my in-law, my mother-in-law, they're in a different phase of life than I am. So what I try to do is help you establish a framework. And I have a 4-step decision framework to help you determine what makes the most sense for you. First step is define your goals. Do you want independence? Do you want community support? Closer proximity to loved ones? What's your financial comfort zone? Do you have savings? Do you have retirement income? Do you have Social Security coming in? Do you have none of the above? Next, step 2 is we assess the cost. So we'll compare aging in place upgrades in your current home versus selling the home, net proceeds. What does that tell you you can get? What is the amount of your net proceeds? What flexibility does that provide you with? Assessing that cost is very important. Consider the lifestyle. Do you have any problem going up and down stairs? Is yard work something you enjoy? Is it a task? Is it something you can't do? How important is it for you to be close to the community, your neighbors? Do you like having things to do with everyone in a common area? Or do you like just going home and doing your own thing, watching a movie, reading a book, whatever it is? And then after that, we look at the market and timing. All right. We're in a seller's market now. So what opportunity could timing provide for your long-term well-being? Again, we're in a seller's market. We're probably going to be in a seller's market in 6, 12, 18 months. When is the best time for you to sell or not to sell in that time frame? You know, what I try to do is maintain, a kind of like a nexus of communication with folks, just to check in, every 6 months or so. And hey, just checking in, how you doing? Oh, Joe, my boiler's going. I've got to replace it. I'm done with this house. Oh, I'm sick of the ice dam. This water's coming in. I can't deal with it. I'm done with this house. Or same problems above. Joe, can you help me find someone who can get this done in a cost-effective manner? Yes. So it's important to assess each of these 4 steps in my 4-step decisions framework because it helps you arrive at a conclusion that you're comfortable with. So you can make a decision that you're comfortable with. Okay, so I've had situations where I've had folks downsizing from a multi-level condo to a single-level condo. Now, the tricky part with that is, generally speaking, a multi-level condo is priced less than a single-level condo, unless you're going to a smaller size. Okay, so like Valley View condominium, they're 2-bedroom, 1-car garage, bath and a half, or about $400,000 for a townhouse. But you could spend more than that on a single level, similarly sized single level right down the street at Maplewoods. Okay. So you need to, now if you were saying, well, I don't want something that big. I'd rather get something that's only 1,000 square feet, not 1,600, 2,000, whatever. Okay, well then maybe we can look elsewhere. Or maybe you're like, I will pay the extra so I can live on a single level and still keep all of my living space. But what's important is to look at the balance between cost and the benefit you would receive from your home upgrade estimate. Actually, that's super important. So if you're looking and you're in a condo or you're in a multi-level property, and okay, I can stay here in this multi-level property, and I'm going to have to spend this money replacing the carpets or changing the kitchen appliances, whatever it is, or move into something single level. Maybe it's a little more expensive, but it doesn't need anything. Or maybe it's smaller and doesn't need anything. I'll save money, pocket the difference. We've also had situations where we've had older homeowners retrofitting their homes with all of the safety devices and equipment, appliances, etc. Those types of upgrades can allow them to retain a good quality of life in their home, to live there safely, and you're retaining the equity in your home so that it's tied to your long-term estate planning. Which brings me to something else. Sometimes you don't have an estate set up. You want to have one. I can help you with that because I have some elder care attorneys, estate attorneys that I can refer you to. Okay. I've worked with several people going from multi-level, larger homes to single level, or even like a loft, a single level home at one of the many lofts we have here, the mill conversions. Those are nice. They're elevated. You don't have to deal with any landscaping. Some of them, they have like the trash chute, so you don't have to take the garbage downstairs. Nice options. But it all depends on what you're comfortable with. The heat is really high. So some of the things that I try to offer to my prospective clients, again, because we may go through all this and it may not make sense for you to sell your home, to list your home with me, which is fine. But I try to provide you, we determine a net equity estimate. What is net equity? So net equity is, we determine what the value of your home is. Oh, it's $580,000, but you still have that home equity line of credit for $72,000. So we subtract that. So 580 minus 72, 508 is your net equity, as long as there are no other mortgages or liens against the home. Then we establish, as I mentioned a minute ago, the cost versus the benefit of the home upgrades. It's going to cost you $5,000 to change the height of the kitchen cabinets and bathroom countertops, kitchen countertops and bathroom countertops. Or you're going to have to spend $35,000 or $45,000 widening doorways, removing carpet, putting in hardwoods, putting a chair lift in, moving everything to one level. Those are two different equations. And then also, look, if you've got $4 million in the bank, that's different than if you have, 40,000 in the bank. Whatever it is, it's your reality. We try to determine the best decision for you, for your reality. Okay, so you can make smart financial decision with clarity. We can also, I have some folks that are like, I was talking with a woman today. She's like, no, I want to rent. It doesn't make sense for me. And, she's in her 60s. She doesn't want to buy. I said, well, I said, if you buy, your mortgage is going to stay the same forever. If you rent something next week, your rent's probably going to increase next year. But it's not my decision, because she may say, well, I only want to live here for a year, then I want to move to Florida. Okay. That helps determine what the best decision is. If you have, an inkling to learn about reverse mortgages, we talked about those before. A reverse mortgage is not for everyone. There's a lot to evaluate. There's a lot to review. And at the end of the day, you need to be comfortable with it. Okay. I've worked with some more reverse mortgage providers, and there is a lot to go over. There's a lot to understand. There are lots of fees. Okay. Now, when you buy a house, when you get a mortgage or a home equity line of credit, there are fees that are traditionally associated with that. So that's why if you're getting a mortgage with 3.5% down to buy a house, you have to pay something that's called PMI. That's an extra fee, a cost for that mortgage. There's a fee up front, and then there's a fee every month moving forward. When you're looking at a reverse mortgage, everything is loaded up front, because the idea is that you don't have to make a mortgage payment until you die after you refinance. And again, reverse mortgages can be used as a bridge loan for a lot of different situations. You have a home here, you own it free and clear. You're not ready to sell now, but there's a great opportunity on this beautiful condo that's perfect for you in fill in the blank. Well, maybe you get a reverse mortgage on your current home, take that money, use it to buy the condo or the other home, and then whenever you're ready to sell home number one, you sell it, take the proceeds, pay off the reverse mortgage. There are a lot of different things that you can do because I tell people, mortgage products, it's like a car. You want to buy a Chevy, a Ford, a BMW, or a Mercedes. Okay, now do you want an SUV or do you want a sedan? Okay, do you want front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive? Do you want a four-door or and then you've got trim levels. Same thing is true with mortgages. There are so many different mortgage products available. They all have different rates, they all have different terms, and they're all for different situations. Okay? So these are the types of things you want to become familiar with, and this is where you can rely on me to help you understand all of the facts, all of the data, so you can make an informed decision that you're comfortable with. Because again, the right decision is different for everyone. What's the right decision for person A may be very different than the right decision for person B. Everything may look similar on the outside, but there may be some other challenges, terms, wants, needs that they need to consider. That's where I come in. And again, this is all low pressure. I mean, I talk to people. So look, Joe, I'm not ready to do anything yet. I'm thinking maybe, 2-3 years down the road after I retire, my wife retires, or after the kids or whatever the kids are doing. Great. But we have the conversation so you can start to educate yourself. And it's kind of like, there were the kids who waited till the night before the exam to start studying. They crammed everything in, studied, And whether you did well or not on the exam the next day, 2 days later, you probably forgot everything that you had studied for. Then there were the other kids who did their homework every night. So when time came to study for the exam, the night before the exam, they had it all down. So their studying was a breeze. It was stress-free. It's a similar situation here. So if you're 50, 55, 60, 70, 75, the number doesn't matter. Just start thinking about it. I'll tell you a personal experience. So my boiler at our house during the Super Bowl, it shut down. So we got the guy in. Of course, you're not going to get anyone that night. Thank goodness we had space heaters. We got the guy out there, got it running Monday morning. And it was still kind of, had to keep going down to reset the button. Something weird. As soon as the weather warmed up and we didn't have the crazy wind. Oh, and I changed the expansion tank. Okay, so we did that. But after the weather warmed up, we didn't have the crazy winds. What we've had the past week and a half or so, knock on wood, it's been working like a charm. However, I don't want to have to deal with this next winter if we have a crazy winter, number one. Number two, as my wife and I get older, I don't want to have to wait. I don't want to have to worry, that we're going to have to put it in when we're 5 or 10 years older because we waited. Because even then, it's going to be even more expensive. And, I've been around long enough to know these things don't happen when it's perfectly convenient. The boiler is not going to poop the bed in September when it's 65 degrees. It's going to poop the bed like it did on Super Bowl night when it's below zero with 30-mile-an-hour winds. That's life. So what am I doing? Even though it's working fine now, I'm getting my boiler guys in to give me prices so I can make an intelligent decision. And again, hopefully my boiler continues to work until the warm weather comes. And then I will replace the boiler when it's 60 degrees out and not 6 degrees out or 26 below zero. These are the types of things you want to do your homework a little bit at a time before you need to. So that way, when you have to make a decision, you have to execute, you have the knowledge and the tools available to you so you can be confident in whatever you decide to do. Or whether you set it up so that maybe you don't make the decision, but you have everything there so your kids or grandkids or family member or attorney can make the decision for you. But the best way to have some control over what's happening with the predictability, assuring your stability, is to start the process sooner, not later. You might say, well, like me, you might say, they're going to take me out of this house in a pine box. That's what I say. Well, great. So I've got to do things now so that I will be able to last in my house until that time. Someone else might be like, no, I'm done with this. As soon as, I can, I'm going to go move to Florida, someplace warm weather where they don't get snow and 30-mile-an-hour winds in the middle of the winter. That's another decision. And neither one, one is not right, the other's not wrong. The best decision for you is the decision that you make with clarity, understanding what the implications are from either side, okay, the yay or the nay. Okay, folks, you've been listening to the Joe Luca Real Estate Show right here on WNRI 99.9 FM, 1380 on the AM dial, and we stream at WNRI.com 24/7 anywhere in the world. You can hear the Joe Luca Real Estate Show at WNRI.com. We rebroadcast the show Saturdays at 1 p.m. If you want to benefit from other videos and information I put out there, I have a blog called Cup of Joe Luca blog. And I also post a lot of videos about everything from selling your home yourself to, buyer tips, things like that, financing, refinancing. I have a lot of videos out there on my YouTube channel. You just have to go and, look for Joe Luca Realtor or a Cup of Joe Luca videos, and you'll find my YouTube channel. So I want to thank our sponsors again. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville is a public insurance adjuster. That means he works for you, the property owner, not the insurance company. You. All calls are returned within 24 hours. He's a Rhode Island guy, 484-300-8495. Vern Rainville. And again, he can tell you if the potential claim you think you may or may not have is a real claim, should be filed, should be dealt with, et cetera, et cetera. Vern can help you with that. Vern Rainville, 484-300-8495. All calls returned within 24 hours. And then I also want to thank our other sponsor, Compass Title and Escrow. Anthony Betancourt and his team of attorneys and paralegals do a fantastic job taking care of our buyers and sellers of real estate. So again, we refer everybody to them, and their number is 401-379-7779, 401-379-7779. But usually you don't have to know their number because we send you there, and we correspond via email, so you don't have to worry about that. Just a couple of things in the last couple of minutes of the show. I want to, my heart goes out to the families that were affected by the tragedy yesterday in Pawtucket. This has actually become a global news item. It's horrible, and I feel terrible that there's that kind of evil in the world, that someone would kill their own children or own child and former spouse. So if we could all, say a prayer for those folks who are impacted by that, because again, it's just, it's terrible. It's terrible. Also, if we could keep in our prayers all the folks in the Middle East. There's a lot of craziness going on in Iran, and people getting killed, and then of course in Nigeria, we've got people that are being, persecuted there for being Christian. So, we've got a lot of craziness. We've got a lot of great things going on in the world too. This is the best country to live in. I'm very grateful for that myself, and hopefully you are too. So please stay tuned. And on the note of, praying for people, next up is Rick Mernier and some awesome scripture reading, interpretation. The good book, actually a number of books, can really, really help you improve the quality of your life, your understanding of life, and everything else. So please stay tuned for Rick Mernier. He will be here, at 6:05, right after the news. And stay tuned, because he does a great job taking care of everyone. Other than that, we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks, guys. Take care.